Welcome back to the Biohacks Podcast. Today we are joined by elite sprint coach Marvin Rowe from Speedworks. We're going to be talking all things speed, about how to get faster. We're going to be finding out a little bit about Marvin and his background, his training philosophy, and then kind of what does a training session look like when you get to the pinnacle, to the top of speed and kind of top of athletics. What do those sessions look like? So Marvin, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited. As you know, sprinting is close to my heart, even though I'm not very good at it. But I love talking about it and I love watching it. So thanks for coming on, mate.
Oh, no, my pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm looking forward to picking your brains as always. Do you want to give a bit, just so people have a bit of an understanding about you and your background, just a quick kind of timeline, like how did you get to where you are today?
Okay, how long have you got? If I try to simplify, my name is Marvin Rowe. I'm a sprint coach. I work within the Speedworks network. I got into coaching, if I'm honest, just wanting to help people initially. Playing a lot of sport myself when I was young, I was regularly hurt, regularly having issues. And once I had gone to university and started to glue myself back together, I developed a love of S&C, a love of conditioning, a love of rehab. And
you were football, right?
Yes. Well, my university had a very good football academy, and Jonas convinced me to come up to Gloucester with him and continue to play football. But again, to be fair, don't get me wrong, the university was a great environment, but the amount I learned about my own body in order to how to fix my issues really started the journey of coaching to a certain extent. And from there, things just snowballed. So once I graduated, came back to London, I then started to intern with Jonas and his squad at the time. And then that was 2012. And then things just gradually progressed, started to work at Oakland's S&C, that I progressed into track coaching, stayed at Oakland's for 4 to 5 years under Ryan Freckleton. And now I've kind of broken out into my own system, well, my own squad underneath the Speedworks umbrella. And it's allowed me to really evolve at a nice progressive level. So I'm able to learn, make mistakes, and then apply that knowledge onto the athletes
100%,
around.
100%, nice. And so your degree was strength conditioning, because we spoke about this before. So your degree was strength conditioning, but then you kind of, while you were doing your degree, you ended up getting hands-on, like with athletes. Was that when you? My degree was basically a sports science degree, but the components that I really fixated on was strength and conditioning. That's what I enjoyed. I was also coaching at the time. I was actually coaching football at the time. And I was also doing some intern work with the S&C rugby environment and also with the footballers as well. So it was quite multifaceted as such. It wasn't just one sport I was fixated on. But the main thing that really aided my own personal development was just learning how to gym and train myself and learning how to fix some of the complex issues I had myself. Plus, with all of the staff members I had around me, there's a guy called Martin Alps that I remember very vividly looking after my body in the football academy. And I still utilize some of the sports yoga he gave me way back when. So I've really, I'm a hoarder for information. Anything that makes sense, I really keep close to heart. And then, so how did you go from gym to track? Like, what was the jump there?
Gym to track. So started at Oakland, doing S&C for both the EDSV Football Academy alongside the Athletics Academy. So that was the initial start. Most people assume I've just come into this as a track coach. I came in through the S&C door. And it evolved into sprinting because initially Jonas had 1 or 2 athletes at the academy that he wanted me to oversee with their protocol as such. And I was at that time looking after the middle distance athletes and my footballers. So once I got a taste of how S&C differed for, let's say, a sprinter,
I then got a bit more obsessed into the track world. And again, things just evolved from there. I tend to find a lot of coaches within the modern era don't necessarily come straight away from track and field. They may have come from S&C, they may have come from therapy, and I fit the same mold, to be fair. So
it's quite interesting, actually. Yeah, no, I was going to say it's quite interesting. Like, and I don't know, that maybe it shows you how rapidly the landscape in strength and conditioning is evolving. It's like, I remember when I was like half the age that I am now, but like growing up, it was all about gym. Gym was everything. Like it was gym. And we're seeing this kind of slow transition now to a point where like plyometrics, sprinting, like the kind of real core fundamentals of what makes you better as a team sport athlete, kind of growing up in that domain, is now starting to actually get the attention that it deserves, because we were just so gym biased, like when I was a lot younger. And I guess you guys are leading that transition, aren't you? You guys are kind of leading the way in terms of helping people achieve their potential in the correct way.
Definitely. Ryan Freckleton always told me, if he's the strength side of things, I am the conditioning. So I quickly realized that strength S&C work isn't just the gym. And what I tend to see that's quite common now at the moment is S&C coaches are required to do a lot of the stuff that sprint coaches now have to employ within a team sports environment. So you can't just come with gym experience. It helps to have a plethora of different tools in your toolbox to utilize. And it's what makes it fun, really. Don't get me wrong, I love the gym, but if you can take somebody out of the gym and get them doing some explosive bounds and maybe doing some acceleration, which all ties in with S&C as a whole, it's only going to be beneficial for the athlete, right?
I think it's really interesting as well, like just seeing the evolution of like strength, like the kind of underlying core philosophy that strength is specific and that there are lots of different types of strength. And the old school methodology was get big and lift lots of weights. And actually what we're realizing to enhance athletic potential, like the more detail, you have to be specific to get the result, I guess. And that's what we're moving towards. So it's, I'm glad you guys are out there.
I fully agree. You have to get specific, sorry. But I don't neglect what was done way back when. If anything, that is information I kind of mix in with my own personal skill set at the moment. I love to lift. I like to see people grow and get stronger. But I recognize there's another facet to it as well that I can't neglect.
100%.
So, yeah. So far, so good.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, well, yeah, you've got the results to match. So you're obviously doing something right. So Oakland's, so the transition from gym to track was Oakland's athletics team and working with the footballers there. So then did you end up kind of helping out with a group? Was that Ryan's group you ended up helping out with, learning kind of more about the track and speed there? And then when did you break off? When did that happen?
So once we went from the academy and I started to have some involvement with the sprinters, what actually happened was the next year, I took more control of the middle distance athletes to start off with. So I didn't necessarily start with sprinters. And if I'm honest, with the middle distance and the footballers, that was more my comfort zone. Football is where I'm from as an environment. Middle distance people run high levels of aerobic work, which is similar to football. The sprinting eventually came into the picture when I was given 2 or 3 athletes to work alongside myself. They helped me just hone the process of sprint coaching. And then the next year I was given a massive squad, which was both interesting and challenging at the same time. I stayed at Oakland's for 4 years. I developed my squad throughout that process. And when it came to the point where a lot of them were going to university, I had a decision whether I stayed at Oakland's and got given a whole nother plethora of athletes to look after, or I progressed that squad into a more senior aspect as such. And it just so happened that I could do that transition whilst under the Speedworks umbrella. So I'm very fortunate that I've had both Oakland's Academy and Speedworks enabling my journey to develop the athletes around me.
I think it's very interesting actually as well. I've kind of got a bit of a curiosity around you, because you came at this from a non-sprinting background. I think it's interesting to hear your insights on the fact that you had to learn the sprinting model, and you had to learn about sprinting from, not from the textbook, but you haven't been a sprinter. And I think there's obviously a lot of this kind of like athletes and coaches, I guess, end up a lot of the time getting into coaching because they've been a sprinter themselves. Whereas you've come at it from a sports science angle, you've come at it from a completely not blank slate, but a more blank slate, because you haven't been out there being taught by your sprint coach when you were younger. So I think it's quite interesting to show that you've now you've got to where you've got to via not having been that yourself, if you know what I mean. Does that kind of make...
Definitely. I tell all my athletes, I've never been in blocks in my life. I don't plan to. However, every year that goes by, I get the ability to be able to coach them to a higher degree.
100%.
And I definitely understand the nuances involved around sprinting a lot more than I did at the beginning.
I think it's really interesting. It's so interesting. It's like that whole Alex Ferguson type of thing, like never been a footballer yourself, but then you understand the ideal, you understand what you're looking for. And does that free you up? Does that open your mind up to, like, we can get so pigeonholed, I guess, in life by what we've been taught and our previous experiences. You can get very kind of closed chain. I guess it's really interesting to show that you've been able to really hone in on what is required and then to be able to apply it in a field setting. It's quite commendable, I guess.
I just feel both components play their part. So the sprint coaches who used to be sprinters themselves, they definitely have experience within them that I can never actually talk upon. And whenever my athletes need that type of information, I'm always pushing them towards your elite seasoned athlete that can give them that required information. However, on the flip side, I'm not giving you a program that I used to do myself.
100%.
Like I said, I'm not from athletics.
Humans are very
So
guilty.
it just means, yeah, but you know, we're humans at the end of the day. No one's perfect. But I've been fortunate. I've got a number of smart individuals who I consider my mentors around me, and they've guided me extremely well, and it's just allowed me to make less mistakes in the long run, to be fair.
100%. Accelerated your learning process, I guess.
Exactly.
100%. Awesome. Brilliant. And then today, so where are you today? So what does your group look like today?
My squad
Big them up as well. Big them up as well. So people have got some context.
Yeah, we'll get to their names eventually, but if you know my face, you know who I'm around. But yeah, my squad at its peak was around 20 athletes. And as every year has gone on, things have minimized. So now I'm with a squad of 6 athletes getting ready for the new season post-COVID. Dom Ashwell, Zanson Plummer, Tope Adeyeye, Kessie Oladoyi, Gina Akpe Moses, and Oliver Bromby. So these are the athletes that I'm going to be guiding for the next season. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the challenge post-COVID. I'm looking forward to just getting back to norm. When you've done this for a while, you kind of get used to the winter block. You kind of get used to what to expect from athletes, what to expect from the program. And yeah, I'm just ready to get cracking on, to be fair.
Brilliant. So let's go into the second section, kind of segues nicely into, so for anybody listening who, I think we spoke about this the first time, to get faster, obviously the old ideology is that, you can't train speed or whatever, right? And we obviously know that that's not true. I think when we first spoke, we spoke about this idea about anybody can get faster. What is it that people need to do if you want to be faster? Say you're not going to be Usain Bolt, but everybody can improve speed. What do people need to be thinking about when they're basically building a program or want to improve their speed?
It's a very loaded question, Simon. And I feel everybody's going to come from their own bespoke approach. For me,
to the top of the mountain, right?
Yeah, well, there's many roads to Rome, let's be honest. But key components for me in regards to speed is one, consistency. If you're not accelerating weekly, how do I improve? And in terms of how many days you're accelerating, that is, again, a bespoke approach depending on the coach. But I prefer once or twice a week, just getting used to maybe the first 4 steps, getting used to the fundamentals of movement, and just understanding what acceleration is. Going off our last conversation, anybody can get faster. But again, I just feel if you're consistent with what you're doing, if you're getting decent feedback and a good gradual periodized program, that usually makes a difference. I don't know how long you have, we can go into a crazy amount of facets involved with speed, but just the basics, consistency, good direction. And those are the main 2 things I ask for any athlete I'm around, regardless of what level you come to me with.
100%. And so in terms of actually the actual practice of that, so consistency once or twice a week of acceleration, and acceleration looks like at your local track, trainers or spikes on, and running as fast as possible. Is that how it works? On a really, I know that you're a master of detail, but like on a really basic level for people that are, for the average person that wants to just improve their speed, it's being on the track, it's being on the grass. Like, what does it look like to you?
I feel acceleration is a crescendo. If we're looking at the season as a whole. So if we're starting from a sub-maximal point, trainers, that may be on the grass, that may be on the hard surface, but anything that you do that's new is high intensity. So you need to allow your body to adjust to overload. A nice, easy number for me tends to be 2 times 3 times 20 meters. That may be the first session of acceleration I do, whether it's in trainers, on the grass or on the track. And again, if I try to simplify, I just gradually build upon that initial starting block throughout the year.
Start where you are, start with something basic, and then gradually improve that over time.
Don't try and overdo it first day, because like I said, anything that you do that's high intensity, anything you do that's new is high intensity. So your body's going to respond to that explosive load you've given it straight away. So when I said I accelerate twice a week, I try to separate the days of recovery as much as possible within. So it's usually Monday, Thursday, or Monday, Friday, or in some respects, Monday, Saturday. It depends on the individual. But if I accelerate, I allow for recovery. I allow for CNS to gradually build it back up again, and we go again.
Interesting. And so basically, like, so the max intensity days, you're saying basically ideally probably twice a week. You want to give yourself as much recovery in between those sessions. And the whole idea between giving yourself recovery in between the session, I know it obviously sounds like a simple question, but that's because you want the training to be quality. That's what you're looking for with sprinting, right?
I definitely want the training to be quality. And obviously, if we're accelerating, I want you to be able to run fast.
And if you're tired, you can't run fast, right?
If you're tired, you can still put down efficiency in terms of steps and physical literacy and whatnot, but that's not always going to equate to speed. So even, for example, even an example of today, an athlete's come to me and I've said, how do you feel? They said they feel good. Now, they always tell me they feel good. So something I judge them upon now is more so how they move. And if I know how you run when you're fresh, then it'll be very blatant to me when you're fatigued.
No hiding.
So
there's no hiding with that.
You can't, if your CNS levels are low, if your ability to project yourself over the first 4 steps is minimal, because CNS, because concentric fatigue has played its part, then I'm not really going to see what I want to see. So yeah, fatigue and recovery is very key in terms of improving acceleration, and not really, and allowing the athlete to not become frustrated. You know, if I want you to run fast, you have to not be crazy fatigued from the day before, in terms of what you've done, maybe football training, rugby training, stayed up late doing a coursework. There's many facets involved, but in general, twice a week. I would like you to be fresh, ideally, but I can still get what's required, regardless of where your fatigue is at. I'm used to this process now. So if you come to me tired, I know what I need to do. Maybe that's more resistance work than out and out runs. If you come to me fresh, then I might put down some gates and do some binary work to see, okay, this is where you were 6 weeks ago. Let's see how things have progressed. So it just depends. It depends how you are when you come in front of me, and I can make a decision from that.
Interesting. That's really insightful. And how much data, like, I know we've kind of spoken this in the past, like, how much data are you guys using? Is it all of your training and recovery, etc., like data driven, or what? Like, are you just turning up and running, or just so obviously people that have never been to a training session with you, it's good to understand. So we know that you need to be running fresh, you need to be running max effort twice a week. And are you using what kind of data and KPIs and stuff like that would you be using?
I think it's best I at least elaborate on my own thought processes around data.
Yeah, definitely.
Data is key. Data can have both pros and cons. And definitely throughout my own personal journey of coaching, year by year, I use less data consistently. So I'll definitely use data at certain times of the season in terms of what needs to be monitored.
And is that because you've managed to get rid of all the junk? Because obviously there's this big movement. You get this in business a lot, right? Where you're trying to basically really hone in on what are the key. We can end up measuring everything, right? And actually how much of it correlates and how much of it is actually useful. I guess when you say that you're using less, is that because you're becoming more effective in knowing what you're looking for? Is that?
Definitely. I have an idea of what I need and what I don't need now. And I've gone through the years of just doing everything, getting frustrated, getting confused, doing every single jump on a force play, doing 10-meter splits up to 120, trying to see where they're decelerating and where the issue is. I've gone through the science-obsessed protocol. So now it's like whenever I do monitor, I feel I'm monitoring what I need to progress these individuals rather than just doing everything. Because again, when you've had a big squad, monitoring everything is time consuming. And time is a factor. If I'm only around these guys for 3 hours of the day, I can't do everything. So even with my programming, I'm starting to minimize what is actually in my program, because now I understand more so what I need. But you asked about the KPIs and whatnot. It's a long, elaborative conversation. But within the Speedwork system at the moment, we're using a tool called Binary. And Binary's really helped me hone in on exactly what I need to improve for each individual and what the data is telling me.
Wow.
And this may be data around ground contact time, air time, step length, step frequency. But it's really aided in my processes of fixating on the how and the why behind acceleration and how I improve those around me.
And I guess these tools, it's like any of these tools, right? You see all this kind of, not even just in sprinting, but there's obviously this big move and rise in fit tech and Aura Ring and heart rate variability and all these new technologies that are coming out in ground contact time. And obviously it's great having all these tools, but again, at the end of the day, the science is only useful if you can apply it to the human being in front of you. And I guess that's what your job as a coach and from what I've understood and what I know about you is that it's that application and knowing when to use what at the correct time, because we can get so addicted to like this is going to be the answer, this is the silver bullet type of thing, and actually in the real world we're not robots. So I guess
I agree. I've definitely gone through the years of being obsessed with data. I thought that's what I needed to know. I thought I needed to take out my timing gates every session, regardless if they're tired or fresh, assuming that they're going to give me PB numbers every time. I feel that as a coach, especially when you're progressing through the journey, you need to go through these processes to understand what you need and don't need. But monitoring is key. And how can I say this in the right way? Monitoring, you can't get away with not monitoring. You know, it's very key. For me, it's important to have an objective bias that I cannot question. The numbers are the numbers. Regardless of what I subjectively feel, objectively, this is where you are right now.
Especially in your game as well, because your game, at the end of the day, at the British champs or at the Olympic Games, that's how you're being measured. That's what it comes down to. So for you guys, it's ruthless on some respects, because there is no hiding behind that 1/10 of a second, or there's no hiding behind that 100th of a second, right? I guess so. You guys have to contend with that as a sport. There's no judges involved. It's very Seco is the judge, or Seco, or whatever
Listen, I don't get me wrong. You're totally right. This is a very numerical based sport, and we're only judged on the numbers. However, I've realized over the years the numbers can be both productive and very detrimental. So, as a coach, it's more so why I fixate on the art of coaching. As a coach, you need to know, especially with each individual, who needs numbers, who doesn't need numbers, who needs clarity at certain parts of the year, who couldn't care less. You have to know your squad. So it always relates back to me in terms of, I've got a human in front of me. I need to understand that human rather than fixating on the data side of things. They both play a part without a doubt, but knowing your athlete will allow you to make better decisions in regards to the monitoring and whatnot. But monitoring is key, and there's a number of facets that I definitely fixate on that they're probably biased to me, but I feel as though it aids me in the overall coaching process.
Awesome.
It's fun, but it's stressful, as you know.
No, respect. It's like you have to face up to be truly great. You have to face up, like if you want to be truly great at anything, right? There comes a time where you have to really face up to the reality and the facts of the situation. And obviously that has to be taken into context depending on environment and situation and context. But within that, you're kind of having to guide them through this path of like, here's the reality and here's the context, and we're kind of in this crazy dance together. So no, respect, mate. It's not easy.
It's a good way of putting it. A very good way of putting it. But there's a number of coaches that don't really monitor and still have very elite productive results. So again, it's all down to the individual. There's people those that I'm around monitor ridiculous amounts. And if that's what benefits them in their coaching process, who am I to say monitor less? At the end of the day, work out what's right for you. And if you're getting the results via your athletes, then that's all that matters, right?
I guess some of it comes down to like, we're in this data age now, we're in this information age, and 100 years ago, we had like really basic techniques to like, but then I guess like you said about common sense, I guess some of it, obviously just because you can measure step length and ground reaction time now, like when you're actually doing the training, the actual type of training that you may have been doing might have been exactly the same. It's just now you can obviously attach a metric to it. So yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. I never thought about it like that actually the training's still the same. It's just now we have the ability to interfere.
Yeah, I feel that's one of the main things that monitoring can help with your own system. Knowing where you're at, and now it gives you more clarity in terms of what actually needs to improve.
Interesting.
And then putting all the tools away for another 3-4 weeks, so we don't have to fixate on the numbers.
Awesome. Really insightful. Let's go into just, I also wanted to give people a bit of an idea of what your macro, so what does the year look like for you? So like, do you have like a winter, spring and summer season, or kind of roughly just give people a basic understanding of what the year looks like? And then within that, kind of how do you organize the training? And then maybe we just delve into what does like a speed, we mentioned about the speed session. What does like a speed day look like for you guys? Maybe if we kind of start high and work our way down.
Okay, I work mainly with sprinters, as you know. So if I look at the sprint season in terms of a macro, I usually have an indoor champs around February, mid-February, and I usually have an outdoor champs. Usually it's mid-June or third week of June for the under 20s and under 23s, and the senior champs are usually 2 or 3 weeks after that. In terms of how I formulate my macro, if I'm honest, my winter has changed every year, and how I describe that is that I'm able to do less of the long lactic type activities every year because my athletes come back to me fitter. So don't get me wrong, I recognize the 10-200s and the 2 times 3 times 250 is still a necessity. But if my athletes are already coming back to me with a relatively high level of fitness, it means that I don't have to spend a crazy amount of time onto that.
I guess this is one of the things, sorry, just to butt in there, like it's like the paradox of training, isn't it? Like what worked for you at one point or what you needed to do with one of your athletes at one point in time doesn't necessarily need to be binary and exactly the same at a later date or a later state in their life. I guess that there's certain attributes and things that obviously over time we're always changing. Our bodies are dynamic, and as I guess you start with athletes when they're quite young, and I guess as they develop, I guess they're changing. So I guess it's just to make a point there is that for anybody listening, is that what you might have needed a couple of years ago in your whatever your chosen domain is, it might not be the same at a later date, or it might need to be tweaked or tinkered, I guess. Would you agree with that? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely agree. Some people are stuck in their ways and they feel they need to do exactly the same thing every single winter. And if that works for you, that's great. But I'm of the mindset of I want to do what I need to do. What does this individual need? And I've just recognized that with every season that's gone by, I've been fortunate to do less of my GPP work, which is my general preparatory phase, and more of my specific prep work. If I just give you a small insight into my winter this year, I'm not really trying to spend long on the lactic stuff. I'm explaining it very vaguely, but for example, I'm talking intensive tempo or extensive tempo, fartlek type activities, stuff that is very far away from the bandwidth of sprinting itself. I don't need to do a crazy amount of that. Why? Because we've just come off a pandemic. They've been training for a long period. I've given them a smaller break. Let's get going. But if I just look at it as a general perspective, usually I will be within the GPP phase for 6 to 8 weeks. And when I then go into my specific prep, it more so is driven by when the competitions are. So once I know where each indoor competition that I need to prep athletes for, that allows me to gauge how long I spend within each phase getting them faster. But as I said to you previously, the prep phase is like a crescendo. It gradually builds and builds and builds to where the intensity increases, the volume probably decreases, the density increases, and the athletes tend to like the results. So
interesting. Building intensity.
Yeah. And then after the indoor season, there's usually around, I would say, 3 to 5 weeks of maintenance work in terms of the track work, that is, which is also prep for your outdoor season. So a lot of people make the assumption that if you want to run fast, you've got to run fast all the time. I'm not saying that you don't practice movement, but there needs to be an element of recovery for any athlete. You know, we're only human. The body can only respond to so much vigorous intensity. So that 3 to 4 weeks after indoors allows me to just allow these athletes to chill and just top up on what we've already been building in prep for the outdoor season. So that's usually how it tends to work. But it's a lot more in depth when you're actually in the trenches.
I can imagine. Essentially, it's good. You kind of helped explain. So there's kind of like 2 peaks, one up to indoor season, and then a bit of a break to like let the body adjust, and then kind of another peak up to the outdoor season. Yeah.
Now that is just me explaining my process.
Yeah.
There may be coaches who have to do a triple peak. There may be coaches who totally disregard indoors and just prep their athletes for the outdoor season. So something I've always been taught is to plan backwards. Know what your aim is first, and that allows you to import the protocols required to peak your athlete at the right time.
Definitely. Respect. Awesome. And then let's go into, I guess you've kind of really explained the block and kind of how the whole season looks. So then say we're doing a speed session, the guys are in with you. Actually, let's go into the week. So say you're doing you've got your 2 main speed sessions in the week, and you mentioned about a Monday and a Thursday. What's kind of going on like in the days between? Is it like active recovery? Like what the guys doing with you?
Something I always try to explain to those around me is I'm very flexible with my protocol. And if anything, I plan it around your life. So it's the easiest way. If I just look at it very general, Monday could possibly be my speed day, my repeat speed day, my repeat speed endurance as such. Tuesday would then turn into active recovery. I might be able to sneak in some fartlek / intensive tempo work. Wednesday would be my off day. Again, that may be a day in which I opt them to come in for an hour or 2 and get some therapy done. And then in terms of how your body's recovered, that allows me to govern what happens on Thursday, Friday, or maybe we go Friday, Saturday. So
okay.
I used to be very stuck in my ways with my squad. I used to throw one program at everybody. Once I realized after a while that doesn't work, I kind of tailor my weekly protocol around the person rather than around what I want to get done.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I guess obviously different people respond to different loads of training in different ways. And I guess it's must be part of the art for you is about you working with a group and each person responds differently and they've all got different goals. And I guess it's about you're trying to put that together in a way that's obviously not only productive. It'd be easier if it was just cookie cutter, but I guess because of the and you see a lot of that in the fitness industry, everything's just cookie cutter, obviously. Yeah. But I guess because of the types of people you're dealing with and the type of goal that you're trying to achieve, it's like one of the highest accolades. It requires that next level detail. So respect.
One thing I can't neglect is the themes. So depending, like I said, my weekly schedule is quite fluid, but the themes of the week are very key to input. So when I speak on themes, I'm speaking acceleration, speed, tempo, speed endurance, special endurance. And at different points of the season, certain components have more of an importance than others.
100%.
So when I look at my weekly protocol, depending on where I am in the season, I just recognize I cannot neglect my themes. As long as each individual is getting the required themes to allow them to keep progressing, that is the priority. Some people can do 2 acceleration sessions and maybe 2 or 3 other themes throughout the week and not be too fatigued. Some people can do 1 acceleration, 1 speed, and a bit of tempo. And that is enough for what their body can handle. So again, for me, it always relates back to having the ability to be flexible and giving the person in front of you what their actual requirements are as an individual, rather than looking at everybody as the same, because they're really not. They're really not.
What does the,
if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And so let's just delve in on the actual day. So say we're doing, obviously speed is the key. We need to run fast. What does that actual training session look like? So you come in, just give people a bit of a rundown of what does the day look like.
If I use my squad as an example, they'll come into the building 9 o'clock. I give them half an hour to activate their body and prepare their body for the day ahead. I recognize as well that's a nice half an hour period to allow their mind to wake up, to allow their body to wake up physically, and to get an element of social with the rest of their squad. It's usually the time I back away and do some life admin or phone calls or planning or whatever. I'll then go into my drill component. After drills, I like to do some sort of plyos before I get into the acceleration. Again, the plyos, the med ball throws, the three-dimensional movements, for me, it all has to make sense in regards to what the theme of the day is. So for example, if it's an acceleration day, I want to do some horizontal med ball throws. I want to do some broad jumps. I want to do something that is mimicking the movement they're about to embark on. Once we've done the running, I tend to like some type of circuit work, whether it be lumbar-pelvic or some bulletproofing for the hamstring or the adductor. Then I give them a nice break that allows them to eat some food, again, get the social aspect in, and then we gym. But again, that's the draft of what I want to happen. However, on the day, they could start running and run really fast. The numerical data I've taken on that day, maybe PBs all the way through. So sometimes I change the plan and I say, go home, we'll gym tomorrow. So I realized that whatever I've written down on paper, be willing to change the plan if it makes sense on that day. And that fluidity, that flexibility I give the squad as they've got older. I'd like to think they realize that the decision process within my head, I'm only thinking about them. I'm not just trying to kill them for the sake of killing them. That doesn't make sense to me.
100%. So, that's really insightful. For anybody listening, it's that idea that you have to build your program and use data and have a plan of where you want to go. But then within that, it's never linear, and you have to also trust the biological system that is your body. Like, I guess
you explain it better than me, Kai. But yeah, that is the fundamentals I'm literally touching upon. And again, I've learned this through all the mistakes I've made throughout this journey. Just being a bit of a control freak and assuming that everything needs to get done. You still need to do the majority of it, but don't try and rob Peter to pay Paul. You'll just end up with a hamstring pull.
Both of them.
Literally. But it's an enjoyable, but at the same time stressful process of just trying to make the correct decision consistently.
Respect.
That's the challenge.
Thank you, mate. So I'm going to look to probably wrap up in a minute. I want to get you back on and probably talk about maybe some stuff in team sports and kind of it's a whole list of categories I want to talk about. But just like final question, is sprinting the king of all exercises? Are you going to, obviously we're slightly biased to this, but.
Is sprinting the king of all exercises? The king of all exercises. What's funny is, you know my phrase, speed is king, but it's too much of a loaded phrase with not much context behind it. Because if I was to say speed is king, there's a lot to explain behind why I think that's the case.
I always just say the fastest person always wins. So in most domains.
wins what though? And it's hard to generalize, especially on in a bandwidth of sprinting as such. But you can't neglect. Let me put it differently. You can't neglect the speed element, the sprinting element that's involved in the majority of sports we do. And if you're not including that into your protocol, then you're, in my opinion, you're doing a disservice to the athletes that are in front of you. Obviously, in different team sports, speed is seen in different fashions, whether it be lateral movements, rotational movements. But it's still a very important requirement for any athlete to embark on.
Respect. Marv,
I didn't really answer your question, but
just say yes.
I'm sorry.
Marv, if anybody wants to, so basically there's going to be people listening to this that obviously have had an inkling about wanting to improve speed. So if anybody wants to get hold of you and wants to find out more about you or find out more about what you do, or if they want to get in touch with you to get coaching, obviously we can leave some links in the description box below, but obviously what will those links be? Is it directly to yourself or Speedworks or?
I would say, if I'm honest, go via our Instagram handles. My personal one is M_S_training. The Speedworks one is Speedworks Training or Speedworks Charity. And those are probably the best forms of communication with us at the moment. All of the email address and Twitter handles and whatnot is all attached to those things. But yeah, if you wanna train Speedworks way, give us a
shout.
Contact us. Long story short, yeah.
Definitely, yeah, no, definitely. As we said, speed is king. So, Marv, I really appreciate your time today. Guys, if you like the video, then hit the like button for us because it helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell below as well, so that when we get Marvin back on and we delve more into the mechanics of speed, the mechanics of getting faster, the mechanics of power, explosive strength, then he will, you'll basically be the first to get it. Marvin, really appreciate your time, buddy, and I hope to see you soon.
Always. Anything for you, sir.
Take care, mate.
See you in a bit, bro.